All right, so it looks like we're live. Um, we've been trying to get like all the technical difficulties like worked out for this one, but like it's been kind of chaotic. This is episode fucking 7 of Punk on Rock, and I have Jonah from Quarterhead. And Jonah, you missed it. I'm just gonna go ahead and repeat this. So there was a comment in the group that this is posted to. Um, that no, it's gone. Oh no, there it is. It says, I'm sorry, but not only was all Kailua scene kids music horrible, they were all horribly pretentious and obnoxious brats as far as I recall. Do you think that's accurate?
You know what? Sure. I like it's not I think about that a lot where it's like, we were all by ourselves over there in this tiny town, and so we had a ton of like insular jokes, and we just like we hung out all the time, and we didn't have like the city. It was just such a big deal to go over to the other side of town and go to shows. And so yeah, we must have come off looking pretentious. And I'm sorry we weren't playing like 4/4 fucking ska punk all the time.
Welcome to the show, Jonah. How do you feel? So yeah, I guess let's get started. So you two have known each other since like grade school, right? Like you guys have been playing music since you know you were kids.
Yeah, I was 5 and Donald was 6 when we met.
Yeah,
and then like we got into basically like me, Donald, and my brother. We got into like Metallica, and we started getting into playing music and trying to play like Metallica. And then Donald ended up like basically kind of finding punk, and then that led us that way. But we've been playing in bands since I guess we started playing music when we were like in like 5th grade, 6th grade, something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Go ahead, Donald.
Oh no, it's really weird. I can't see Jonah, so I don't know when he's done. Like,
he's done.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add. I mean,
just imagine it's like a telephone call.
It is like a telephone call. I don't. Yeah. Who talks on the telephone? Yeah, no. However, I was just gonna say, however old, whatever grade you are in when you're 10 or 11, was when we basically just started, 1990 or whatever, started getting into playing instruments and covering Metallica, Black Sabbath, Nirvana, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, but then it wasn't until I don't know how old we were when we started playing shows. Like you started playing in shows before I did, because you were in God.
Yeah, that's when. Yeah, because I joined God with it was like a new version of it with Aaron and Josh Benton and some other guy I can't remember. So I ended up playing a show first, but then I can't remember when it was the New Originals as well. Like it was when we met Raph Taylor, and that's when we started playing.
Yeah,
I thought
it was just the two of us. Yeah.
On the Instagram.
I text with him every once in a while.
Yeah. I get texts from Raph, usually when it's like 3 a.m. wherever he's at, and he's just sending me like old YouTube clips of bands from the 90s. I love it.
Yeah.
So when did Quarterhead first get together as a band? And I guess who else was in it? So we had Aaron, who was singing, right?
Yeah.
And Armin, who was playing drums. Or no, Jonah, you.
I was drums.
So when we started, Jonah moved out of Hawaii for the first time. He lived in Lake Tahoe. And Aaron and Bobby and I started a band, which ended up becoming Quarterhead, where I was playing bass, Aaron was playing drums, Bobby was playing guitar, and we were just like trying to start a band. And then we had written a couple of songs, and our friend Chuck was gonna maybe sing, and Dave Noodle was maybe gonna sing. And we had a practice. I think we had maybe 2 or 3 practices with Dave as our singer, but it just wasn't the vibe we were trying to go for.
Sure.
and like I love Dave. You know, he's an amazing person, but it was just more like, yeah, he was approaching it more of like a snotty, like punk, kind of like bratty, antagonistic vibe, and that wasn't what we were going for.
Mm.
And then Jonah ended up moving back to Hawaii, and especially at that time, I mean, Aaron's gotten way better at drums, but like when we started Quarterhead and Aaron was on drums, he was like not as good at drums really. So obviously, when Jonah moved
Yeah.
back, it was like, oh, we'll get Jonah to play drums, and Aaron will be on guitar. And Aaron is a hilarious guitar player because he's one of those people that like him being, as you know, as a you know at 15 or 16 or 17 or how I don't have no idea how old he was at the time, but I think he was 16. His inability to be good at guitar was like his strength. Like he's an awesome guitar player. He's like one of my favorite like kid guitar players in that scene because he just had a lot of like a lot of things he did at that age. He was just like really stylish at how he did it. But barely could play guitar, but played guitar perfectly for what we were doing. And same thing with
Yeah.
Bobby. He has like a really weird. So those two guys playing, it was really fun to be able to have two guitar players all of a sudden. And then I don't know what how to do with Aaron, and Aaron was just like an older dude who was a like just seemed like a weirdo that could bring a different energy. And all of us,
I
I
just
mean,
I remember you saying because he was hanging around because he had just started dating Aaron's sister Rachel, and so he was
sure,
around, and then we kind of found we always liked the bands he was in,
yeah,
and but like we found out how funny I think that was the main thing. It's like it's like this guy's so funny and so like
yeah,
strange and weird, and I think it was Donald was the one that kind of was like it's like he might have a good take on that, on being the singer,
yeah. Yeah, I
which
mean,
was
I think
fun. And
we
I
knew
it's
that
like
Yeah, I
remember
think
when I
well, one at a time.
no way. Yeah, go ahead. I guess.
I was gonna say, I think
yeah, I was say I'm getting a lot of feedback from someone not wearing headphones. Maybe it's the host.
it's me. Sorry,
Mm.
buddy. Here, let me start
Should
talking
tech check.
buds. Uh,
But when I first came in, yeah, it was very chaotic and noisy and a lot more straightforward. Um, and then and I think it was like we had like 5 songs that were just like blazing punk songs, but then I think it was just the way when the 5 of us all got together, and then like I think it was the sense of humor and the style of what everybody was listening to ended up like it's like once Aaron showed up, I think it really made the dynamic a lot more fun and experimental because he's such a weird guy, weird smart guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean the songs that
that
I think we had maybe 2 or 3 songs before Jonah came back, and those were way more like us trying to be like, yeah, like a fast punk band, but also like I don't know what we were trying to do really, but it definitely changed a lot once Jonah and Aaron were in the band. It became way more like rock and like funk and stuff.
yeah. Can you guys hear me? With the
Yes.
earbuds.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
can.
All right. So when was your guys' first show as like a solid band? Like you guys had started writing songs. Jonah came back, and the band was like you had all of your members together or whatnot. What was your first show, and what was like the reception like?
I think our first show was at Kalaheo, I believe,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
I was just trying to figure it out.
I think that was our
Yeah.
first show. And it was a show at Kalaheo's cafeteria, Kalaheo High School, which is where we went to school. Um, I was I had dropped out already, and Aaron had already graduated. because he's a little older than us. Yeah, the reception was fine, I think. I don't think, I mean, I know we came out of the gate. I remember that at that show that a lot of people that we were friends with that were like, you know, like Josh Hampton and like some older dudes said that we had a lot of energy at the start of the set and that it petered out. I do remember that because our set, for some reason, our first song was like ended in a insane, like the first song ended in a breakdown that you would end a set with, basically. Right. And so we top loaded the set like a bunch of idiots. And I know, I just remember that. I know that we also were wearing wigs at that show.
Yeah.
For no reason, just for fun. Which is like, I mean, that's, you know, that's why a random Facebook user is saying that we were pretentious. It's because we were doing, you know, we specifically were wearing ugly polyester long sleeve button up shirts and brown, like we had a uniform for no reason. We just like always presented our bands as more than, I mean, the antithesis of like what punk bands are supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to just see like one of the crowd got up on the stage. We always try to like think about a presentation that would make us laugh, and you either thought it was funny and cool or you thought you were pretentious and shitty. So
yeah. And that was a lot of that too, kind of like with 36 Chambers, you know, same thing with wearing the karate gis that I never wore because it made me look really fat, made me look like I was wearing a muumuu. And so when it came time when it came time to wear like when the Quarterhead stuff, I was like, oh, I can wear this stuff. Like I can maybe pull off this, and so it finally, like, you know, that was a blast. And then that's like, you know, with, and almost the clothes ended up, I think, even like influencing, like the look we chose started to kind of push us in an attitude and a sound as well. It was just kind of we thought about the whole thing, like Donald was saying.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think for myself at the time, I think, you know, because A Young Poisoner's Handbook sort of, I think we played our first show with you guys, and it was at John Dang's house.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
The QWERTY show.
I remember seeing you guys and being like,
didn't you guys play?
Like I used to think like you guys like did it perfectly, like, you know, and I think we were all kind of like in this sort of same like group of, not even group of people, but same mindset. Like punk in Hawaii was starting to get artsier, maybe, or at least more fun and less serious, right? Like, and I think, you know, you had us, you had you guys, you had bands like Sorry, and I think three of us always played together for the most part after that. But I remember that first show at John's house and just being like blown away. Like you guys nailed it, and we were forever jealous of like how good you guys were whenever
that show was really fun because, you know, for me, being stuck in Hawaii I was so aware of what was happening on the mainland, and the fact that house shows didn't really exist in Hawaii, and I knew that was like the biggest part of every other scene. It was like a dream that we got to play just like a small living room as a show. I remember being hyped on that. I know that show, that it's funny because I feel like a thing we did in Quarterhead was that we wrote so many songs so fast. We weren't a band that long. I don't think we were a band for more. I don't even think we were a band for a year. And we wrote like 20 songs. And, you know, most bands in Hawaii, I don't think ever write 20 songs. Like, how many songs do the Numbskulls have? Like, they don't have 20 songs today, you know? So like, you know, any band in Hawaii before us or after us, I don't think wrote as many songs in that time period, and that was just how much energy we had for the band. We also were able to start practicing twice a week instead of once a week, and that really, really helped. Like
And
anything
you know, I was gonna say too, like, cause like, and we were responsible for the same thing. Like all of our previous bands only had ever had a handful of songs. Like, 36 Chambers, we played so many shows that we kind of barely
yeah,
even had time to write songs. So we just basically every time
yeah,
we practiced, it was just going through the set.
we had
Yeah.
like 9 songs in that band. And that's why that was the most popular band we were ever in, and was like the most easily accessible band, because we were playing weird hardcore stuff that had poppy moments into it and was catchy and fun live, and we just played the same 8-song set 3 to 4 times a month for 9 months straight.
Right.
And that was Hawaii's bread and butter at the time. It's like you play a show with the Numbskulls, and they're gonna play their 10 songs, and we're gonna play our 8 songs. And
Yeah.
I mean, which I don't think that that's that big of a slight, especially at the time when, if all you have is the live show, you're not selling records.
Yeah.
You have to play so that people know your songs in just the live context. Like, you need to play a set, and then the next show you play the same set, and all those kids now know it.
Yeah, well,
Um,
you go see the Numbskulls, or you go see, like, you go see Numbskulls, and you want to hear Running Out of Time because, like, you want to sing along because you remember it now. And same with like
yeah,
Unit 101. Like, it's like when they're playing, you're like, I hope they play, like Noka Oi.
Oi.
Yeah.
yeah. I hope they play Noka Oi, and then they encore it with their 2 Minor Threat covers. And
Yeah,
people would,
exactly. Yeah, it was perfect. And like, it was just
Pat
it's
would do a
almost
backflip.
yeah. I think it was really too a thing of like, it's maybe Hawaii is just kind of, the punk scene is influenced by like the party hangout culture, where it's just like we weren't necessarily, we're punks, and we're in the indie music scene, so we're not going to be playing covers, but we want to essentially make our own covers to to have a part, like, to make it exciting for everybody, to kind of
Right.
have some of that electricity for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you guys started playing shows in town, like, I mean, I guess in general, what was the reception to Quarterhead? I mean, from my perspective, again, I was just jealous of how well you guys did it. But like, like generally, and you're saying you're playing with bands like, Unit 101 and the Numbskulls. I mean, like, how did people perceive your band? And was it that sort of like, oh, look at these pretentious, like, arty kids, like, whatever?
I don't know what the reception to Quarterhead was. I don't ever remember. I know that I remember that we watched a tape back of a show we had played. What was that venue that was in Waikiki that was by the 7-Eleven?
Rendezvous.
No, not Rendezvous.
Pink.
Yeah, Pink's Cadillac, maybe.
Yeah, Cadillac. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So we had played a show there, and I remember that we watched the video of it back, and we played a song, and there was no clapping afterwards, like not a single sound. So we definitely were falling on some deaf ears from certain shows. But then, yeah, we also, I mean, we knew that, like, we did feel a kinship with your band. We did feel a kinship with, like Sorry and Frenchie and those people, even though those girls hated me at the time, for sure. Because I was a piece of shit to them a lot of times, especially on that old Hawaii scene message board. I was super anti, I was a piece of shit. I was like a 15 or 16-year-old piece of shit on that board.
Yeah.
And was super frustrated with how people in Hawaii didn't seem to, like, they were on an internet message board, but weren't using the internet to find out about anything outside of Hawaii. And that used to drive me crazy. It's like, you have the world at your fingertips. You're on a message board with me. You should know a little more than the 5 bands that are in the scene right now. Like, broaden your musical horizons. And that was what Quarterhead was doing, was like, for Jonah and I, it was, we were in 36 Chambers. We had kind of the seal of approval of like Raph Dongan and Josh Benton, and like, so we got, like, so our first bands were the New Originals and the Year Outs, and those shows, no one gave a fuck about who we were, because we were just kids from Kailua. and who cares, you know? And then once we had 36 chambers and had older guys kind of get us in, and then we had people paying attention to us, it was like, okay, what do we do next? Well, everyone thinks we're these macho hardcore dudes, which is ridiculous because we're the least macho, you know, we're wimps, we're nerds,
Yeah.
you know. We just liked aggressive, violent music, but we're total coward wimps, you know? So it was fun to take whatever attention we had and use it to start a band that was more rock oriented and less hardcore, but approach it like we were, you know, we're still punk hardcore dudes, but we wanted to just play like weird, fun rock music and make people, I don't know,
a big part of it that I think too is that like we were like pushing ourselves, and I think, you know, listening back to some of the stuff, like pushing ourselves way past like what our abilities were at the time, where it's like, you know, I had this idea of like one of my favorite drummers is the drummer from Scared of Chaka, and what I loved that he would play along less with the bass and more with the guitar riffs, and like he would accent along with a riff. And I remember kind of being like, it's like, oh, I'm gonna try and just like, so these guys started coming up with even weirder riffs, and I was like, I'm gonna play along like my drums are a guitar as well. Like it's like I wanted that was, and we all kind of started to have these, and we were getting older and starting to listen to different stuff, and so, and that's of course why we came off pretentious. It's just like, it's because like, you know, we were finding out about new things and incorporating it and trying to like experiment. And
I think
yeah,
we're reflective of like how things were when, you know, in the mid 90s, when like, you know, my group of friends were starting to listen to things like Born Against and, you know, like, you know, the San Diego hardcore stuff, the 31G stuff, and Abolition stuff, and like the kids who were in your average hardcore bands just didn't understand it. And like, you know, we would try to like not like aggressively push that music onto people, but be like, hey, you know, like you should check this out. But for whatever reason, like that resulted in us like being the dickheads of the scene, basically.
Yeah.
A stigma that has not left me, by the way. I'm still.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I do remember though, like there was the best reception we got was some show at, I don't know, some warehouse space, maybe in Kalihi. And like I remember even the power went out that night. But we played a set and it was fun. And like, you know, and like our friends, like, you know, Lyle from Buckshot, AJ, Brian Baldwin, like our friends were like very like, they had a lot of fun with our band because like, you know, they got it and they loved how weird it was. And so that was always nice. Like it's not like our friends abandoned us. Like our friends enjoyed the concept. And but I remember like this guy like was starting to do this like newsprint zine for the Hawaii scene. It was called like not noise pop, but like, you know, alpha pop or aqua pop zine or something like that. And it was, he did like maybe 2 issues of it. And it was all about the Hawaii punk scene and the art scene. And even I think he did like rave, like he covered rave stuff. He was like a real, like he was really trying to do like a Hawaii counterculture, you know, newsprint zine. And he gave us this amazing review, like because he reviewed the show and he's like, I'm going to be doing this thing where it's like energy, you know, like performance, like it's like, you know, from a scale of 1 to 10, and then like originality. And like he reviewed us last and he just like goes on about like he's like here's the thing about Quarterhead, they're cool. It's like they're the kind of cool that most people will look at and just say they're nerds, but in 10 years they'll say that it was cool. And then like it's like their energy was a 10, their like their performance was a 10, and he said, and the highest originality scale out of the entire show, they get a 2 because everyone else got zeros on it. And I still have that somewhere. I still have that news thing. Like I wish I could have found it. It's in some box somewhere. But like I still like I go that's really cool. This guy who we didn't even know like just kind of got it, you know.
Yeah. And so at what point did you guys decide that you were going to record, and what was the intention there? So I have 9 songs that Jonah sent me earlier today. Was that the complete demo? Was it even ever released?
No, that was demo? 2.
I don't.
We recorded twice. We recorded 2 different times.
Yeah.
Both I think with Tunji. I think we both with Baba Tunji on both times, and the first one's real like noisy, and the second one's a lot thinner. I think this first one we had mastered a little bit, but I think we
Yeah.
put it out on cassette tape. We the first demos we recorded a cassette tape with the intention of sending it out, having something to send out because we were going to try and plan a tour, and that was like it was just like we got to record so we can send it out, and those are actually my favorite recordings of us, for sure.
Yeah. The recording, the first one was to have like a demo tape, and we were just excited about that stuff. It is hilarious because those songs, I remember by the time we recorded and then had those tapes made, um, I remember like I didn't listen to those recordings for like a few months, and then we had kept practicing and playing shows and whatnot, and then we listened back to those recordings, and they were like slower than I couldn't believe we ever played those songs that slow, which is hilarious. 'Cause they sound fast on like when I listen to the recording now, it's like, oh, these songs sound too fast. And but we were playing those maybe 2 to 3 times faster than that recording live. And that's what's so frustrating is that like our live show was never captured on those recordings. Like especially the second time we recorded, which was supposed to be like an LP. Like we recorded that demo, try to like book shows through it, which Jonah did book a tour with those tapes, which was awesome. Um, but the second recording, which was supposed to be an LP, we were just trying to do like a way fancier recording. And like Jonah said, we were playing way past our abilities at the time, and we were just like trying to do too much. But that recording is like super thin, and it doesn't capture what we were doing live for sure, which is a bummer.
So you guys were able to go on tour. I don't remember that happening, but
Yeah, we
in 2000.
summer of 2000, Arn, me and Bobby all had graduated that spring, and once we decided we're like, hey, let's do a tour, and then the whole band basically turned to me and said, okay, Jonah, you book it. And
Well, you had experience.
I mean, I was just gregarious. I think Donald's response was just like, it's like, well, you like talking to people, so.
Well, you're obviously the most personable out of that group of idiots, and also, hadn't you already gone on tour with the Sticklers, or no?
No, that was the year after.
Oh, okay.
And
I
so
know that you had contacts from Dave, though, right? Weren't most of those tour contacts from Dave?
some were from Dave Noodle, some were from the Boyd Wenger from Boba Fett Youth and Dave Mello from Up Ivy and Schlong, because when I was in South Lake Tahoe, I worked with them at their record store, and they would say, oh, well, if you need a show in Vegas, contact the guys from Civic Minded 5. And so I contacted the guys from Civic, hey, they sent me their way, and then I just kind of piecemealed it through there, and then we ended up doing like a handful of shows with guys from it was like Civic Minded 5 and the Blacks. And us, and we did like 3 shows in a row, and then kind of went off. But it was just real piecemeal, and like I remember, like I didn't have email then. I didn't have an email account or any kind of internet, so I was just calling from the apartment I lived in. And I remember my dad, who was like helping me take care of bills, was just like he's like, well, I just got a phone bill for like $2,500.
oh geez,
because it was just because it was like it was a month of me just like calling up and be like, hey, I'm in a band from Hawaii. And we lucked into some really great shows too. Yeah,
That's
it was
insane.
because it was long distance. I mean, that's what it used to be. If you didn't have a phone plan that did that.
I didn't know that. You never told me this.
No,
That's
my dad funded that thing essentially with that bill and giving us a car to use.
Yeah.
Who'd you end up playing with, and what was the reception like to you guys on tour?
I think people liked the energy. The shows were all pretty bad, or at least like playing early, but all of them were really interesting. Like, we did like we were in the middle of the desert outside of Vegas, and it was a generator party on 4th of July, and there was people just shooting bottle rockets off all around us, and like I broke my snare drum, and I remember going, "Does anyone have a snare drum I could borrow?" And no one offered it up, so we just like had a terrible. There was that. There was there was what else was there? There was a great show I did at Mission Street Records in San Francisco, where a guy like totally fucking got like, he's like, "You guys, I love the way you guys sound. You need a place to stay?" And we're like, "Yes, we do."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we play. It was. I mean, yeah, it was fun. It was insane. We played Vegas, Reno. The Reno show was really fun. The crowd in Reno really liked us. That was in a garage. And the bands that we played with, all those dudes seemed to like it, and that was fun.
Mhm.
We played Lake Tahoe, which was just kind of like more us just playing for like Jonah's parents and a couple of drunks and like his friends, and that was fun. The San Francisco show actually was fun. Like, it was like a daytime show at Mission Records. But yeah, we had, someone liked us enough to offer us a place to stay. The LA show, we played with Men's Recovery Project and Bastard Noise, which was exciting at the time. Bastard Noise was terrible, but Men's Recovery Project was awesome.
And that was the interesting, because it was at the PCH Club, which was kind of a legendary club in LA, and we were scheduled to play there. And I remember the guy, Angel, I think is his name. I ran into him at the makeup show recently, like earlier this year. I still run into him like every 3 years. He's like, and he goes, "Hey, Quarterhead." But he goes, he like, I remember like I call him just to double check on the show, and I'm like, "Hey, is everything still good?" He's like, "Yeah, but bad news. Men's Recovery Project are in town, and they're like playing like a few miles away, and that's essentially the audience that you would have got." And we're like, "Oh no." And then I call him like a few days before. I'm like, "We still good?" He's like, "Yeah, and great news. That venue got shut down, so now you guys are playing. You're opening up for Bastard Noise and Men's Recovery Project." We're like, "Oh shit."
That's rad.
But yeah, I mean, that tour, we're a band from Hawaii. We did that tour with 0 merchandise, which is the dumbest thing we could have done. We didn't have shirts. We didn't make more tapes. We had nothing. We just played those shows.
Yeah.
People sort of liked it. We played one show was where it was like in the middle of California somewhere. It was like pretty close to like Chico or whatever. And
the barn.
Yeah, and it was a barn, and we showed up, and they just like didn't advertise the show at all. So we just played to the people that lived there during the day, and then went to Jonah's grandparents' house afterwards, and we're just like defeated.
Yeah, and our last show was terrible too. It was at a record store from the guy in San Diego, the guy who ran Run for Your Fucking Life. And but
I think that was from your contact, right, Kevin?
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeff,
yeah, we played to nobody at that record store in the day.
I totally forgot about that. I should ask Jeff about that, actually. He lives in the Bay Area now.
Oh shit.
And he plays in a band called ARM, which is like songs written by people in jail. And basically he sent like requests for lyrics to like prisoners. And like they just sent back a bunch of lyrics, and they wrote music to it, and they perform them live, and like all the money and stuff goes to like prisoners advocates, lawyers, and things like that. So anyway, so after the tour, did you guys think that you were going to get anywhere as far as like hooking up with a label, putting it?
We broke up after the tour because we were all moving out of Hawaii at the time. The tour was kind of just like, oh, this is the last thing we can do. Like those three, Aaron was already out of school. I wasn't planning on going to college. I don't think anyone other than Aaron. I guess Aaron went to college, but the other 4 people did not go to any secondary schooling after high school.
Yeah.
And we had the tour planned, and then it was like, great, we're out of Hawaii, and then we all moved back. I don't know what we did after that though. I guess we play shows after that tour in Hawaii? We must have, but I don't
think
remember.
so. I don't
I think
remember
we
doing
played
that.
one. I think we played once or twice. I know we played around New Year's Eve, so that would have been after that summer. So I
Yeah.
think we played a handful of shows at the end of 2000.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Aaron moved to California,
Yeah.
and then I moved to North Carolina briefly, and yeah, we just broke up after that. We had that recording, but we knew we were breaking up, and we didn't like the recording at that point anyway. After the tour, so we had planned on putting out an LP, and that just like never materialized because we lost interest in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it.
Unrelated, Jonah.
It would have been.
There's like crazy lag on Jonah's end. Like,
Yeah, it's like my phone's over because it's like the like I said, everything in my place is breaking, and so like I'm using my phone as a webcam, but it's overheating, and so is my computer.
oh, Jesus. It seems to be working
now. Okay, good.
Okay, well, so Quarterhead broke up. I do remember you guys moving at various points, but when were we doing things together, right? So there was My Best Friends of Vampire, which was like the most ridiculous band ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but that
another band that was a
total joke, like just good time.
Well, there was I think all of our scene was making a few joke bands. We did My Best Friend's a Vampire, and then me and like Damien and Mike had Society's Threat, which was like, and it was always just like making fun of other people, like other bands or genres. We were all just doing like parody stuff for a little bit, just because we all had so much energy to play.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was when I moved to North Carolina for like 4 months. And that's when you guys had all started, that's when they had all started Society's Threat, and you guys, and like that whole scene, whatever scene existed at the time after Quarterhead, it was evolving into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I moved back, and that's right. Once I moved back, we played a Quarterhead show with Society's Threat played too at Pink Cadillac.
Oh. That's right. That's right.
I remember that. So we did that, and then I moved again to North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonah, that's when you were in like Dos Muchachos and stuff, right?
Yeah, Dos Muchachos was the last band I was in Hawaii with like Brian Baldwin, Dave Hewlett, Mish.
Yeah.
And that was funny because like what I was saying before about like how like the concept of being like overly complicated with Quarterhead, I almost did the exact opposite. It's like every band I was always in was always like a reaction to the previous band, and so like with Dos Muchachos, I was like I'm gonna play as hard and simple as possible, and and I also didn't have drums anymore because my drums were still in California because I never brought them back with me, and I remember I would always have to ask people for their kit. And I would invariably always break something on someone else's kit. I was such an asshole.
Yeah, we never, in Quarterhead, we didn't own amps or anything. Like we owned like I owned a bass, and those guys owned guitars. And Jonah had drums in that band, but Jonah was the only one showing up with gear. Which showing up with drums is something, but like it was going up to I mean, I became friends with like people like Lyle from Buckshot because I had to go up to him and be like, hey, can I borrow your guitar pedal and stuff, and like, or we met a lot of people by it's a super shitty thing to do of like, hey, can I borrow your gear, but it actually made us like become friends with people that I don't think would have ever wanted to talk to us in the first place, and then we just got up in their face like, hey, can we borrow your amps? And that was pretty awesome because we, as much as people thought we were pretentious and stuff, we were like, when I look back, all of our friends were in bands, and we were obviously friends with people that were in bands that like, we liked them musically just fine, but also had nothing in common with them as far as our band sounded or whatever, but we still were good friends with them. Like, you know, we were always friends with people that were in like the Petty Fords or Buckshot Shorty or like
Mhm.
any of those bands. And it's like not necessarily my taste, but I always loved them because they were my friends.
Right.
And
Would
Yeah.
would
it,
you
that
say
was,
that? I mean, you guys were all straight edge at the time, at least
yeah,
for most of that, from what I recall. I think Chuck at some point started drinking, um,
yeah.
as a joke.
I still am straight up. I think I'm the only one out of our group of friends other than Jason Gomez and Ralph Dongan that are, I think the three of us are the only ones that are still
Do,
edge.
Yeah.
do you think that that like sort of like contributed to people thinking that you were standoffish, or like, I mean, I know that had been the case in the past with a few people, but maybe
Yeah, I mean,
because you were all straight edge and you hung out together, it was like insular, and like, you know, people thought that they couldn't break your group of friends or whatever.
yeah, I don't know. I never thought about it in that way. I always just thought, I mean, I never gave that a thought because we wouldn't have been able to drink at shows anyway. We were all teenagers.
Right.
Um, you know, like everyone that was in Quarterhead like was 16 or like, you know, the we were so young. So it was like I never viewed us as being straight edge as like a way that people thought we were squares at shows. Like maybe people were hanging out drinking that we weren't aware of, but we were too busy just like watching like goofy movies
Right.
and you know trying to write songs or whatever. Um, so I have no idea. I have no idea how that played into it. Because I mean, like in 36 Chambers, that was a straight edge hardcore band, but Quarterhead we never brought up being straight edge. Like that wasn't a part of that band
Yeah.
at all. I don't know if and Aaron drank, I think, or he's
Yeah.
a person
Aaron.
that
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. Aaron did drink. Yeah.
yeah, but also he's, you know, he's a type of person that even if he was drinking, he drank so infrequent I never even noticed or anything. And we also like I don't know, you know, to this day, like I'm still straight edge. I don't care that people drink, you know. So we didn't care then either. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that was a reason that I think people just thought we were weird and shitty and you know, we were from Kailua and we were rich white
Well,
kids. So
yeah, it's also the thing about you know, Hawaii is such a counterculture in itself already, like where like, you know, drinking and smoking weed is like that's just what you do. And so
Yeah.
like
yeah.
it's not just weird to like not drink in a punk scene. It's like weird that you're just not doing it in a place where that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like you guys hung out with me, and like you guys would always
Yeah.
come out to like the park where we were all drinking and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Like it
Yeah.
never seemed like a weird thing to have you there. And I don't think anyone thought that like, you know, you guys were being assholes by not drinking. But I do know
Yeah.
like that, you know, in the past, like before like the mid 90s, when like, you know, there were some of those kids that were straight edge, and like, you know, there was like that sort of like, oh, you're straight edge, like I'm not gonna like you, or oh, we're
Mhm.
straight edge, you know, like we're not gonna come to your shows. Like that kind of shit did
Yeah.
happen for a while. Um, but yeah, so anyways, so
Yeah.
we broke up after tour. Like what did you guys all end up doing after that? Jonah, we know what you did after that. You did all
Yeah.
kinds of bullshit after that. Donald, what happened after after Quarterhead?
So what did happen? We broke up. It was just like slowly like I moved to North Carolina twice, but then came back to Hawaii. And then I lived in Hawaii basically from like 2001 or from mid 2000 to late 2001. Me and Bobby and Aaron started Three as Company, which was basically like, well, Jonah and Aaron have moved to California, and I'm back in Hawaii, and we were just like, you know, we didn't do anything for a little bit, and then we just started being like, oh, we should just start a band again, which was the original formation of Quarterhead. And that's when we kind of got into the idea that it was like, yeah, we don't need anyone else. It's just the three of us are like the core engine of this thing. And, you know, it was just like this weird gimmick that we got in, which was like the joke, like Three as Company, I think is a chapter in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or something. Aaron and Bobby are super into that shit. I've never read it, but Aaron was like, "How would you think about the name Three as Company?" And then we just kind of ran with the gimmick that it was just like the three of us were all that mattered, and we try to be like. That's Aaron came up with the idea of like playing. He learned how to play drums standing up, which was insane. He like just started talking about the idea. He's like, I think I can make my drum kit. I think I can play drums standing up, and then we would try to play standing in a line, so the drummer wasn't behind everyone. It's like we're Three is Company. We're all equally important. And that band was met with even more indifference than Quarterhead. And it was pretty hilarious. Like we found these they were called night vision goggles, but they were from KB Toys, and they were just green tinted goggles with flashlights on the sides. And we played a show at Pink Cadillac, and we wanted to play by just the light of those flashlights that were on the side of our heads. So we wanted the lights to be turned off, and people couldn't have been more mad that we were waiting for the lights to be turned off at that show. It was basically the way people are mad about, you know, not wanting to wear a mask today.
Yeah.
That's the level of vitriol that people, and we were wearing like, we would try to buy clothes from the thrift store that were just like clothes that like a 40-year-old woman from like Ohio would be wearing. We just like wore the stupidest clothes we could find, did the dumbest shit. That really was met with total indifference. And then yeah, we were that band for 9 months or whatever. And then Bobby and I ended up moving to Seattle after that.
Right. And I moved to Minneapolis, and then I moved in with you guys for like 3 months in Seattle.
Yeah. And then that was that. I was in a band the only band I was in after that in Seattle was Society Nurse. And yeah, I replaced their original singer. They had put out a 7-inch with their original singer and then kicked that guy out, and then we ended up recording an LP and, you know, played a handful of Seattle shows, and then our drummer and I both moved out to the East Coast, so that band broke up. We played like 4 shows on the East Coast when our LP came out. But that was, I forget what year that was, 2013.
It's a really good LP. It's a really good album.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because we're talking about a band I was in 20 years ago, and we have no records from that time period. There was like talk of a 36 Chambers record, there was talk of a Quarterhead record, and it just never materialized.
We recorded all of our bands we would always wanted to record, like even, you know, like the Year Outs, like we recorded 36 Chambers, we recorded Quarterhead, Dos Muchachos, we recorded those. Even like like those are lost, like those, you know, are gone. I'm lucky enough to have, like, you know, Quarterhead stuff and 36 Chambers. I have access to those, and I listen to them and I go back to them. You know, it's nice to have a record, and not like an actual record, but it's nice to have like a document.
Yeah, right. An artifact from the time period. And so what happened? Where's Bobby and Aaron at? Well, I know Aaron's in Maine, right? Is that where he ended up?
No, he's out. They live outside of Portland.
Okay.
Yeah, not Maine. Yeah, they live outside of. Jonah would know more about Aaron. I haven't talked to him in years. Bobby's
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, Aaron got a job with, I think it's Hewlett Packard, and so he works out like in Beaverton, Oregon, which is outside of Portland. So like, and he has an amazing kid, and he's married to Aaron's sister Rachel, who's still like a great photographer.
I almost ran into them at the Jawbreaker reunion at Riot Fest, but we couldn't find each other. Like we were texting each other, and like both of us lost cell service, and we're just like, "Fuck it." Like, hope you had fun. See you later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's Bobby and Aaron at today?
Aaron lives in Hawaii. He's the only one of us that still lives in Hawaii. And he's been in a couple of bands with different people. I think the last band he was in was called Human Lion. And I know that they were kind of like opening up for like bigger mainland acts and stuff, but I don't think he's doing that. He just had a kid pretty recently.
Nice.
Yeah. So he's just he lives in Kailua and, you know, has a wife and daughter. And Bobby lives in Seattle. He's a bartender and, you know, like
he's a bar manager now.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Him and one of his good friends, owns a bunch of bars in Seattle. So he's pretty in there. Yeah, and he's married and
he's big in the role playing game scene. Like he has a lot of he does a lot of that stuff. It's like he's active in that world. That's his scene now. The role playing fantasy, D&D kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which he was always into when he was a kid.
I'm getting a ton of lag from you guys. Like I can't hear either of you, and it's all kind of slow right now.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I think we're all getting like shitty Wi-Fi connection now, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're almost at an hour. I was going to talk to Jonah about everything that he's been doing since he left Hawaii, becoming like a celebrity and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
I mean,
catch up with
I'm still in band. I still play music.
That totally didn't help at all. Yeah. Well, that was great.
I put out a punk EP. Does that count for nothing?
I enjoyed chatting with you. I wish that I could continue to do so, but it looks like our stream is like all messed up, and I'm gonna blame it on Jonah's like overheating phone.
Yeah, no. Jonah just put out an LP on Asian Man Records.
Well, I appreciate I can't hear you guys at all, but I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for catching up, and stay in touch. And love you guys. Take care. Aloha.
Thank you.
Kind.